She seems to be doing the one thing she's paid to do well, and that's to be the commissioner of a major, growing, prosperous professional sports league. Is she really, though? Is it as prosperous as it should be? See, ESPN doesn't lose money and then make cuts. ESPN doesn't make as much as it should and make cuts. This should be a booming success, the WNBA, because of one woman, Caitlyn Clark. It's not. So giving Kathy Engelbert credit.
What you're about to hear is not a sports story. This is a story about betrayal, greed, and one woman who has single-handedly exposed an entire professional sports organization for what it truly is: broken, desperate, and completely out of control. The WNBA thought they had all the power. They thought they could fine her, ignore her, let players physically destroy her on the court, and she would just quietly keep filling their arenas and boosting their TV ratings like a good little rookie. They were dead wrong. In the last 48 hours, Caitlyn Clark has done something no athlete in the history of women's sports has ever done. She has simultaneously been battered on the court, robbed by her own league, and then turned around and signed a deal so massive it made the entire WNBA look like a garage sale operation. And now, from inside the locker room, 4 words are leaking out that are sending shockwaves through every single executive office in that league. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Do you think the WNBA is deliberately allowing players to target Caitlyn Clark to knock her down a peg? Type yes or no right now, because by the end of this video, your answer might completely change. Let's get into it.
I mean, women are out of their minds in this league. I rolled my eyes at the many missteps of Engelbert, Buckner says. Why couldn't she just condone the racism leveled at Angel Reese and other players during the 2024 CNBC interview rather than praise the television ratings? Well, okay. Messaging is part of her job description. She's not exceptionally good at. This tracks with one of the biggest complaints against Engelbert. She doesn't talk enough with the players. That's your complaint. That's the little girls of the WNBA complaint. And you are bringing up, of course you are, because again, I told you the background, at least what I was told to me allegedly by Greg Doyle. There's a racist element here. She brings that up, not the throat punch of Caitlyn Clark. She brings this up, something about Angel Reese. All right? The racism leveled at Angel Reese. Wait, what? What about the racism leveled at your biggest star? Happened a few weeks ago. We don't talk about that, do we, Candace? Of course not. Because this, again, is all Candace Buckner has to live in the world of angry African Americans.
Let's start with the moment that lit the entire powder keg on fire, because it tells you everything you need to know about how the WNBA views Caitlyn Clark. Not as a generational talent, not as the woman keeping their lights on, but as a problem to be managed and silenced. After weeks of absorbing physical punishment that would make an NFL linebacker wince, Clark finally spoke out publicly about the lack of officiating protection she was receiving on the court. She didn't curse anyone out. She didn't call players by name. She simply told the truth, that she was not being protected, that fouls were being swallowed, and that the physicality directed at her was going completely unchecked. It was the most reasonable, measured statement any athlete could make under those circumstances. And the WNBA's response? They fined her $900. $900. Let that sit with you for a second. This is the same league that has been riding Caitlyn Clark's coattails since the moment she declared for the draft. Sellout arenas? Clark. Record television ratings? Clark. Charter flight upgrades that the entire league now enjoys? You already know the answer. The commercial momentum that brought in a wave of new sponsors and broadcasting deals that have transformed the WNBA's financial outlook? Every single bit of it has Clark's fingerprints all over it. And when she dared to ask for basic, fundamental protection, the kind that any player in any professional league has an absolute right to expect, they reached into her paycheck and pulled out $900 like they were scolding a child. Now here is where the cruelty of this gets truly staggering. Clark's base rookie salary in the WNBA sits at approximately $76,000 for the season. That's not a typo. $76,000 for a player who is single-handedly responsible for television rating spikes, sold-out arenas coast to coast, and a flood of new sponsorship money pouring into a league that was hemorrhaging relevance just 2 years ago. And out of that already insulting paycheck, the league had the audacity to claw back $900 because she had the nerve to speak the truth publicly. Think about the message that sends to every other player in that league. Think about what it says to every young woman watching from the stands or at home. It says this: your voice has a price tag. Speak up for yourself and we will punish you financially. Stay quiet, take the hits, fill our arenas, and don't you dare make us look bad in front of the cameras we are profiting from. The fine wasn't about the money. $900 is pocket lint to an organization operating at this level. The fine was about power. It was the league planting a flag, trying to remind Clark who was in charge, trying to establish dominance over the one player they are utterly, completely, humiliatingly dependent on. But here is the thing about trying to assert dominance over Caitlyn Clark: she doesn't fold. She doesn't apologize to quiet the room. She doesn't issue a statement walking back what she said just to keep the peace. When you come at her, she comes back harder. And what she did within 24 hours of that fine being announced is one of the most perfectly executed power moves in the history of professional sports. That response was coming, and the league had absolutely no idea what was about to hit them.
Republican Study Committee says the WNBA's response to congressional concerns about Caitlyn Clark's treatment, quote, falls short, and warned that lawmakers will keep, quote, every option on the table as they continue pressing the league for answers. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert responded on July 24th to a letter from Fugler and 10 other House Republicans who questioned whether the league had adequately protected Clark and held opposing players accountable for overtly physical conduct. And that's the other thing. Are you adequately punishing the offenders? Which we know a one-game suspension is not an adequate punishment. Even worse, we found out she wasn't even going to do that. It took the NBA commissioner giving a directive to get her to respond.
Here is what the WNBA's front office was thinking when they issued that $900 fine. They thought it would send a message. They thought it would remind Clark of her place in the hierarchy. They thought the news cycle would move on in 48 hours and they could get back to business as usual, collecting the revenue she generates while keeping her quiet and compliant. What actually happened was the single most devastating public humiliation a professional sports league has ever experienced at the hands of its own star player. Less than 24 hours after the fine dropped, Nike went public with the announcement that had been quietly building behind the scenes. Caitlyn Clark had signed an 8-year signature shoe deal worth $28 million. Not a partnership, not a collaboration. A full signature shoe deal, her own logo, her own line, her own global brand embedded inside one of the most powerful corporations on the planet. The number alone is almost incomprehensible when you hold it next to the $76,000 the WNBA is paying her to risk her body every single night. In the time it takes the WNBA to pay Clark her annual salary, Nike is paying her roughly 368 times that amount. The league that fined her $900 for speaking the truth now had to watch the entire sports world wake up and do the math in real time. And that math is absolutely brutal for the WNBA's credibility. But it wasn't just the money that made this moment so completely devastating for the league. It was the timing. The announcement landed like a precision strike right in the middle of the WNBA's news cycle. Her signature interlocking CC logo started trending globally within hours. Social media went into complete meltdown mode. Sports talk shows abandoned whatever they were discussing to cover the Nike deal. Every major outlet ran the story. Every sports fan on the planet was talking about Caitlyn Clark. And while all of that was happening, while the entire sports world was consumed by this massive commercial announcement, the WNBA's games that night were almost completely invisible in the conversation. Their own product, their own games, their own players were drowned out entirely by the commercial empire of the player they had just tried to publicly discipline with a $900 fine. The symbolism is almost too perfect. The league reaches into her paycheck for $900, trying to put her in her place. And she responds by announcing she just made $28 million from a brand that has more global power than the entire WNBA combined. It was the cleanest, most silent, most devastating, "I don't need you" statement any athlete has ever made, and she didn't even have to say a word. Nike said it for her. What this moment exposed, beyond the sheer financial gap, is a fundamental structural failure in how the WNBA operates. They have been sitting on a gold mine, a generational talent with crossover appeal that extends far beyond traditional sports audiences, and they have been treating that goldmine like a liability. Instead of building around her, protecting her, amplifying her brand, and using it to elevate the entire league, they have been nickel and dimming her, allowing her to be physically abused on the court and fining her for asking for protection. Nike saw what the WNBA refused to see, and now the whole world could see the difference between an organization that knows how to build a star and a league that is too small-minded, too politically complicated, and too institutionally broken to do the same. But as electric as that $28 million announcement was, behind the scenes, something far darker was unfolding. Because no shoe deal in the world means anything if the body wearing those shoes is falling apart.
Silver, Goodell, anyone could have stopped the ugly blowback directed at Thomas following her flagrant foul. Really? But you could have stopped the foul in the first place. You could have stopped the hate. This is such a bullshit article by such a bullshit person, and it's steeped in racism. There's not a word in this, at least what I'm reading, that talks about the mistreatment of Caitlyn Clark from the moment she walked into the arena. Buckner used to, I don't know if she still does, when she ridiculously and idiotically covered the Indiana Pacers. She used to sit courtside. Well, anybody sitting courtside watching a Caitlyn Clark game knows that Caitlyn Clark from other players, black players, is called the most vile thing. White bitch, hoe. We all know white mother, you know what I mean. I mean, we see it, we hear it, it's all the time. But you don't hear that. You hear that a woman throat punched somebody and fans got mad. That's the level of coverage of the WNBA. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The dumbest media in the world, the most racist media in the world. These little girls like Candace Buckner have never played a sport, have no, at any level worth a damn, have no idea what they're talking about, but they know this. They know this.
To understand what has been happening to Caitlyn Clark's body this season, you have to understand the environment she is playing in every single night. This is not a normal professional basketball season for her. This is something that has no real comparison in modern sports. A deliberately hostile physical environment that has been allowed to develop and intensify without any meaningful intervention from the league that is supposed to protect its players. From the very first game of her professional career, Clark has faced a level of physicality that has drawn widespread attention and disbelief from players, analysts, and fans who cover basketball at every level. Former players, people who spent years in the WNBA, and understand exactly how the game is played at that level, have publicly stated that what Clark is absorbing on a nightly basis goes well beyond normal physical basketball. It crosses into a category that should be triggering serious disciplinary action from the league. But it hasn't, and that is the part that has turned this from a basketball controversy into something much darker. The pattern is clear and it is documented on film. When Clark drives to the basket, opposing defenders are not simply playing tough defense. They are making contact that has nothing to do with the basketball. Late hits after the whistle, shoves in the back during dead ball situations, forearm shots to the ribs in the post. And perhaps most disturbing, the kind of midair collisions on driving plays where a defender leaves their feet with zero intention of playing the ball, targeting Clark's body in situations where she is completely vulnerable and unable to protect herself. And the referees have been swallowing their whistles at an alarming rate. The organizational culture around officiating Clark's games seems to have settled on a philosophy that can only be described as let them play, which sounds fine in theory when you're talking about not calling ticky-tack touch fouls. But when you apply that philosophy to the level of physical contact Clark is absorbing, it becomes something entirely different. It becomes institutional negligence. What makes this situation even more infuriating is that the solution is not complicated. It does not require a complete overhaul of how basketball is officiated. It simply requires consistent application of the rules that already exist, rules that are already on the books, rules that are supposed to protect every single player on the court equally. When a defender launches into a ball handler who is in the air with no play on the ball, that is a flagrant foul. The rule is written. The penalty is clear. All that is required is for the officials to call it. They have not been calling it, and the league has not been demanding that they do. Clark herself has spoken about this with a level of restraint and professionalism that, honestly, is remarkable given what she has been dealing with. She has expressed her frustration through proper channels. She has spoken to team officials. She has made her concerns known publicly in the most measured way possible, and then received a $900 fine for doing so. At every turn, the institutional response has been inadequate. The coaches, the analysts, the fans filling those arenas, everyone watching closely has seen the same thing. The physical targeting of Caitlyn Clark has been allowed to become a normalized feature of WNBA games in 2024. And when you normalize targeting a player's body with impunity, eventually you stop wondering if she is going to get seriously hurt. You start wondering when. That moment came, and when it did, it silenced an entire arena. There are moments in sports that stop time. Moments where thousands of people in an arena and millions watching at home simultaneously hold their breath because what they are seeing on screen goes beyond competition and enters something deeply human. A player is not a player anymore. They are a person in pain, a person whose dream might be ending in real time in front of their eyes. That moment happened in a game that should have been another chapter in Clark's historic rookie season. She was doing what she does, pushing the pace, finding angles that other players simply cannot see, creating chaos in the opposing defense with her combination of vision, shooting threat, and drive. She had the ball, she attacked the basket with the fearlessness that has defined her game since college, and she went up. What came next was not basketball. There was no play on the ball. The collision she absorbed midair was the kind of contact that the rulebook exists specifically to prevent. She came down wrong, and the moment her knee made contact with the hardwood, you could feel the entire building shift. She went down and she stayed down. For anyone who has played sports at any level, you know the difference between the kinds of falls that hurt and the kinds of falls that terrify. This was the second kind. The medical staff was on the floor within seconds, but those seconds felt impossibly long. The Indiana Fever coaching staff's body language told the whole story. This was not a situation where you clap your hands and urge your player to shake it off and get back out there. These were coaches who were genuinely scared. Clark grabbed her knee. The slow-motion replays that circulated on social media in the hours following the game became a kind of grim exhibit in the case against the league's failure to protect her. You could see the angle of the impact. You could see the way her body absorbed a force it was never designed to handle in that position. You could see, frame by frame, exactly what months of unprotected physical targeting had finally led to. She had to be helped off the court. She could not put any weight on that leg. Now here is the part that transforms this from a tragic sports injury story into something the WNBA should be genuinely terrified about. This was not a freak accident. Freak accidents happen in sports. Ankles roll on perfectly clean plays. Muscles tear during routine movements. Those are tragedies, but they are part of the inherent physical risk of professional athletics. What happened to Clark's knee was not a freak accident. It was the direct, predictable, completely foreseeable result of a culture of physical targeting that the league allowed to grow unchecked for months. Every coach, every analyst, every referee, every league executive who watched Clark play this season saw this culture developing. The warning signs were not subtle. The outcry from fans, from former players, from media figures was loud and consistent. And the league's response was to fine Clark $900 for talking about it. The moment she went down, the phones in every WNBA executive's pocket started burning. Because every single one of them understood immediately what the rest of the sports world was already saying out loud. Their TV ratings, their attendance numbers, their broadcast deal values, their franchise valuations, their entire commercial renaissance is tied directly to Caitlyn Clark being healthy, on the court, and performing at the level that only she can perform at. And they had allowed the culture that put her on the floor to develop right in front of their eyes. The fans are not forgiving this. The analysts are not softening their language about it. And the people who write laws for a living have started paying attention in a way that has the league office genuinely rattled. When professional politicians start putting a sports league on notice in writing, you know the situation has escalated to a level that goes well beyond a bad call or two. This is no longer just a basketball story. This has become a story about accountability, about institutional failure at the highest level, and about what happens when a sports organization refuses to police itself. The Republican Study Committee sent an official letter to WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert asking a series of direct, pointed questions about the league's treatment of Caitlyn Clark. The letter, signed by Representative Russell Fugler and 10 other House Republicans, zeroed in on two specific areas: whether the league had adequately protected Clark from overtly physical conduct on the court, and whether the players responsible for those incidents had been appropriately disciplined. These are not complicated questions. They are the kind of questions that should have been asked and answered internally by the league months ago. The fact that elected lawmakers are now asking them officially, in writing, tells you everything about how spectacularly the league has failed to handle this situation. Commissioner Engelbert's response came on July 24th, and it was, by any objective measure, completely inadequate. She described the league's internal review processes, the system of post-game analysis that can theoretically result in upgraded fouls, fines, suspensions, or disciplinary measures. She stated that the league seeks to apply the WNBA rulebook and applicable disciplinary processes consistently across all games for all players. And that is where Representative Fugler unloaded. His response cut straight to the core of the problem. He pointed out that Engelbert's letter contains zero supporting evidence to demonstrate that the rules have actually been applied evenly. He stated directly that saying you apply your rules consistently is an assertion, not evidence, and that it is the league's burden to prove it, not Congress's burden to assume it. He made clear that, until the WNBA engages with the specific information requests rather than simply restating their own policies, the lawmakers' concerns remain unaddressed. And he used a phrase that should be keeping every executive in that league office awake at night, every option on the table. That phrase means exactly what it sounds like: congressional oversight, potential hearings, the kind of scrutiny that no professional sports organization wants directed at their operations, because once that level of institutional examination begins, it does not stop at the narrow question that started it. It tends to expand. And here is the detail that makes the league's position even more indefensible. According to reports, Commissioner Engelbert wasn't even going to issue a meaningful response to the incidents involving Clark in the first place. It reportedly took direct intervention from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who oversees the WNBA operationally, to get Engelbert to take any substantive action at all. The NBA commissioner had to essentially direct the WNBA commissioner to do her job. Think about what that says about the leadership of this league. The man running the NBA, a separate organization, had to step in and essentially tell the WNBA to take player safety seriously. And even then, the response that came was described by lawmakers as falling short. A one-game suspension for the kind of flagrant physical targeting that put Clark on the floor is not a deterrent. It is a permission slip. It tells every other player in the league that the cost of going after Clark is one missed game, and the league's golden goose is fair game. This is the institutional culture that Clark has been navigating all season, and she had finally, unequivocally, reached the end of her patience with it. When everything else has been stripped away, the shoe deals, the TV ratings, the congressional letters, the fine, the injury, what remains is something deeply human. A person who loves what they do, who has worked their entire life to reach the highest level of their sport, and who is being systematically failed by the institution that is supposed to support and protect them. And when a person like that reaches their breaking point, they don't always make a speech. Sometimes the most powerful statements are the quietest ones. Reports leaking from inside the Indiana Fever locker room in the aftermath of the knee injury paint a picture of a player who has moved past frustration, past anger, and arrived somewhere far more dangerous for the WNBA, a place of absolute clarity. According to sources close to the situation, when Clark was informed that league executives were attempting to reach out and check on her condition following the injury, she had no interest in hearing from them. The medical staff was evaluating her knee. Her teammates were around her. And when word came through that the front office was trying to make contact, she looked up, exhausted, physically broken, emotionally spent, and delivered 4 words that have been quietly circulating through the highest levels of WNBA operations ever since. She said simply, "I am done pleading." 4 words, no press conference, no carefully worded statement drafted by a PR team. Just 4 words spoken from a place of absolute conviction by a player who has finally, completely, reached her limit. Think about what those 4 words actually mean in the context of everything that has happened this season. She is done asking for protection from officials who are not calling the fouls. She is done hoping that the commissioner's office will step in and establish consequences that actually deter the physical targeting. She is done pretending that the league's infrastructure is functioning at the level it claims to function at. And perhaps most significantly, she is done operating from a position of dependence. Because here is the thing that those 4 words communicate that the WNBA should be most afraid of. Caitlyn Clark no longer needs the WNBA the way the WNBA needs her. She just signed an $28 million Nike deal. Her brand has reached a level of global recognition that exists entirely independent of any basketball league. Her fan base is loyal, passionate, and enormous. If she walked away from the WNBA tomorrow, or more realistically, if she began publicly exploring options, demanding structural changes as a condition of her continued engagement, or simply allowed her contract situation to play out without making any moves to stay, the league would be in a financial freefall within 1 season. The leverage has completely shifted, and both sides know it. Clark's declaration that she is done pleading is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a reckoning. She has every financial tool, every public platform, and every ounce of fan goodwill she needs to force the WNBA to make real, structural, lasting changes to the way it operates. And if the league fails to respond with something more substantive than a press release and a 1-game suspension, they may find out very quickly just how dependent they have become on a player they spent months treating like a problem. The 4 words were quiet. The fallout is going to be anything but. Here is something that does not get talked about enough in this entire conversation: the role that certain media voices have played in shaping the narrative around what is happening to Caitlyn Clark, and the very deliberate choices some of those voices have made about which parts of the story to amplify and which parts to quietly ignore. Because while Clark has been absorbing physical punishment on the court, dealing with an institutional fine for speaking out, and watching her body break down under the weight of an unprotected season, a section of the sports media has been running a very different story. They have been focused on everything except the actual abuse, and the way they have framed it tells you a great deal about the priorities driving their coverage. Pieces have been written by writers who present themselves as advocates for women's sports that spend substantial word count on the racism directed at Angel Reese and other players during the 2024 season. And look, racist abuse directed at any player is worth covering. That is not the point. The point is the selective nature of the outrage. These same voices have been conspicuously quiet about the racist abuse that Clark herself has been absorbing on the court all season long. People who have been courtside at Clark's games, people who are physically present in those arenas and can hear what is being said by opposing players, have reported hearing language directed at Clark that is as vile and racially charged as anything documented elsewhere in sports. The abuse is audible, it is consistent, and it is being almost completely ignored by the mainstream sports media. Meanwhile, pieces are being published that focus on the physical targeting of Clark, the throat punches, the late hits, the mid-air collisions, and rather than condemning the players responsible or examining the league's failure to act, they pivot to discussing how ordinary fans responded to those incidents, as if the reaction of fans in the stands is the real story, rather than the fact that a professional athlete is being physically assaulted in plain view of officials who are choosing not to intervene. This framing is not accidental. It is a deliberate editorial choice, and it serves a very specific function. It redirects the conversation away from institutional accountability and toward audience behavior, which is a much easier target and a much less uncomfortable story for certain media voices to tell. Commissioner Engelbert herself gave a perfect example of this kind of selective messaging during a CNBC interview in 2024. When given the opportunity to directly address the physical targeting and racist abuse directed at Clark, she instead pivoted to praising the television ratings the controversy had generated. She praised the numbers. She did not condemn the behavior producing the headlines. Messaging is supposedly a core part of the commissioner's job description. What that moment revealed about her priorities was, to put it charitably, deeply revealing. The absence of honest, courageous media coverage of what is happening to Caitlyn Clark is not just a sports journalism problem. It is directly enabling the institutional failure of the WNBA. When the media refuses to accurately document and forcefully report on player abuse, it removes one of the most powerful mechanisms of public accountability. The league can continue to underperform on player protection because the dominant media narrative is not pressuring them to do better. Fortunately, the court of public opinion is not waiting for mainstream sports media to catch up. Fans who are watching these games, analysts who are willing to name what they see, and voices outside the traditional sports media ecosystem have been documenting every incident, every swallowed whistle, every inadequate fine, every hollow commissioner statement. And that documentation is building into something the league cannot ignore much longer. Because the truth has a way of getting out, especially when someone with Clark's platform is telling it. In the middle of all of this noise, the fines, the injury, the congressional letters, the media wars, the shoe deals, the locker room reports, Caitlyn Clark sat down and said something that cut through every single layer of the controversy and reminded everyone why this story matters in the first place. She talked about why she plays basketball. Not about the money, not about the endorsements, not about the television ratings or the franchise valuations or the charter flights or any of the institutional machinery that has been grinding around her all season. She talked about what it feels like when she steps between the lines. She talked about the love she has for the game. She said that nobody should ever try to take away the love and joy she has for the game. She said that competing was always her dream. She said that when things go downhill, what pulls her back is the reminder of the goal, winning championships, helping her team, chasing something that matters. And she said that the physical targeting and the media criticism and the institutional disrespect have not taken that love from her. They have not, and they will not. That is the statement of someone operating from a place of genuine, deep purpose. Not bravado, not performance, real conviction. She also addressed the technical foul situation with a level of honest self-awareness that was genuinely refreshing in a sports media landscape, built almost entirely on polished, managed messaging. She acknowledged, with a laugh, that she is probably not going to make it through 17 playoff games without picking up another technical. But she framed it in a way that reveals something important about who she is. The fire and passion that sometimes crosses the line are also the same qualities that allow her to dominate games, connect with crowds, and perform at the historic level she consistently reaches. She called herself an entertainer. She described the feeling of being at her best on the court as something like art, creative, spontaneous, alive. She talked about the moments when she is smiling and fiery, and locked in with the crowd as the moments when she is most completely herself. And she said that balance between the fire that fuels her and the awareness needed to channel it productively is something she is working on. That level of honest, grounded self-reflection, delivered in the middle of the most intense scrutiny any player in women's sports has faced in a generation, is remarkable. It speaks to a maturity that goes well beyond her rookie status. And it speaks to a relationship with the game itself that is entirely separate from the institutional chaos surrounding her season. This is important to understand because it changes how you interpret everything else happening around Clark. She's not playing to prove a point to the WNBA. She's not staying healthy to protect a media narrative. She's not absorbing hits and fighting through injury because the cameras are watching. She plays because she genuinely, deeply loves the game, because the court is the place where everything else goes quiet and only the competition remains. The WNBA has been treating her as a commodity. Nike figured out she is something far more valuable, an authentic, passionate, once-in-a-generation talent whose relationship with her sport is the kind of thing brands dream about but almost never find. And as long as that love for the game burns inside her, Caitlyn Clark is not going anywhere. But the conditions around her, those need to change. Because you can only push a person who loves something that much so far before they stop asking for change and start demanding it. She has started demanding it, and everyone is listening now. Here is where we land, and I need you to sit with this for a second. The WNBA spent months treating Caitlyn Clark like a problem, fining her for telling the truth, ignoring the physical war being waged against her body, and issuing hollow responses to congressional oversight while their biggest star got carried off the court. And in return, Clark has exposed every single crack in that foundation without breaking a sweat. She signed a $28 million deal while they were counting her $900. She dropped 4 words that rattled an entire front office. And through all of it, she never lost sight of why she plays, because she genuinely, purely loves this game in a way that no fine, no injury, and no institutional failure can touch. The real question now is simple. Will the WNBA fix this before they lose the thing they cannot replace? Or will they keep making the same mistakes until it is too late? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Is the WNBA going to fix this? Or does Clark eventually walk away and take her empire with her? If you are riding with Clark, smash that like button, subscribe to Clark Spotlight, and turn on every notification. Because this is far from over.